Everybody. There you go. Yeah, I got a crowd here.
Why don't you go ahead and release your video so that they'll at least be able to see you from here. I don't know why the camera up there isn't working.
I've been trained. Sort of. Start video.
Go, there we go.
Unmute.
There we go. I did it.
Okay.
It was working the wrong. We got 3 computers. I was working the wrong one.
Okay.
You're on.
You're on. Okay. I'm Curt Watson, School of something. We've got everybody here. You're talking about the Camino. George was asking how I found out about it, and actually, I'll give Father Craig some credit because I don't always have the best memory of sermons, but he did talk about the movie The Way. This is about 10 years ago, 2010. And it kind of stuck on me, and then about the same time, 2011, Melissa and I went over to Spain, pulled around, we came along to Rome, which is where the path goes for fellowship. And we saw the little symbols there. We also saw this couple that had been walking.
I don't know if anybody else on Zoom can hear, but I can.
With shells on their backpacks and stuff, and they were, so it's amazing that it kind of stuck with us. Well, let's try that. So we ended up, we went with our group, and I kind of had it on the bucket list when I was tired to walk the whole thing, but then came across, actually in about 2019, I found that this diocese here in Colorado, and they sponsored pilgrimages and groups like this, and they had organized them. So if we felt we went with the group, we had to behave, and that probably we did it such a stuff. And so we're going to go in 2019, we couldn't make it, that was the Christian route. And so May of this year, we went with Canon Greg Foraker, who is, I guess, works for Bishop Kim at the diocese level, and he does about 1 or 2 of these trips a year, part of his ministry. So we had 13 pilgrims, as we call it, for Peregrino in Spanish, different philosophy, including 4 priests. And I made a comment with them at all 4 priests. I said, well, at least I'll have somebody to give me last rites if I need it. I think I'll always have somebody to drink. And I didn't need last rites, but I enjoyed a lot of camaraderie after the walk. Great people. So our trip was 14 days. 10 of those we hiked continuously. Some segments in the last 5 days was every night we arrived and the next morning we left from there. The first 5 days I'll show you were some of the better segments across the Camino de Frances. I'll show you that in a minute. In preparation for that, this was, I think we signed up in 2020. I got canceled in 2021, and I got canceled twice. And then about January 22, I guess Bishop decided, okay, we can safely go on this with COVID management. And so we only had about 4 months prepared. We had like 4 Zoom meetings, and we also had a retreat with I think 11 months where we could make it down at Cathedral Ridge. It was actually on Palm Sunday. That was the only time. It was so last minute. It's like, oh, Cathedral Ridge is free on Palm Sunday because everybody was in church. That's where we were. And we also these Zoom meetings were prepared spiritually as well as physically. And the preparation, I think in January, I did about 150 miles in preparation for the 140 miles that we walked. Some did more, some did less.
I did less.
Yeah.
A lot less. That's most important.
So in January and May, got some preparation. And I would go from our house in Fox Street. I started to walk to the campground, Cherry Creek, and that was 8 miles. And then finally I get there and come home. It would take like all day. But it was good preparation, and I found that most people were prepared. And I think there was a couple at the retreat that came, and they were just doing the simple hikes. And they, I remember one guy, Priest Mike, he's with Navajo Man's Episcopal priest down in Mexico, yeah. And he was not in shape, and a month later he was in shape. I think it really woke him up. Yeah, I got it. My act. He was the youngest one on the group too, but he got in shape. So anyway, let's see if this should be good. I guess I have to do this. There we go. Looking for it.
Just use your right arrow.
Okay, there you go. So this is a map of really about, it identifies about 12 of the structured trails or caminos, pilgrims you can take. And again, what we did was it's kind of orange or yellow. And what we actually did was we met and built out, which is up here, bust over to Lourdes. I'll talk about Lourdes. It's another pilgrimage that was kind of included in this really cool place in France. And then it's about 50 miles over and bust over to Saint Jean Pierre. And that's in at the border in France. We walked across the Pyrenees, and then from there we were in Pamplona, we were in Lyon. I'll show you some slides on the way, and then about Ponteferrada, where somewhere around here was the last 60 miles, and we walked that continuously for 5 days. So we get up in the morning and we walk to the next point, and the bus was gone by then, so we had a bus the first half of the trip. And kind of showed us some of the better sites. So the trail itself is about 500 miles long. We did about 130 miles. I'm about to see some of the better sites. Just a little history. Everybody's going to Santiago, and that's Spanish for St. James. And while Gary's going to help me if I get some of my, it's great we asked me. I didn't know all this stuff before I went. So I'm going to get asked questions, so I started, doing research and stuff. But some of the background is the history of this pilgrimage is that Santiago is St. James, and it's where they believe that he was buried after St. James was crucified or beheaded by Herod when he returned to Jerusalem. And they believe his body was sent back up to Galicia or northwest Spain, where he did a lot of his ministry, and was buried there. St. James was St. James and John, sons of Zebedee, apostles, cool guys. And he ministered, like I say, in Galicia, and legend has it that in 813 AD, a shepherd was led by stars to a field. Sound familiar? So, in 813, just after, and so you have field is compass in Latin, and stella, stars, stella. So that's believed to be where they rediscovered his tomb. And then the bishops of Spain endorsed this, and they built a church in 829 AD. It's a lot of history here. If you think about it, what amazes me is if you think about the timeline of Christianity, over half of it's only me in terms of 1,200 years, 1,300 years of history. In 829 AD, built the church, and then pilgrims started going to Santiago about 950. And then it was in the 1100s that Pope Calatus II, did I pronounce it right?
Good enough.
Okay. He did a pilgrimage from Saint Jean Pierre, which is where we started, all the way to Santiago, the 500 miles. And when he got done, he kind of wrote a journal of what he had done, and it became kind of a travel guide. And after that, people started following. 1,000 years later, just before COVID, 375,000 people had walked the required 100 kilometers, the last 100 kilometers for 362 miles to earn their Compostela, which is a certificate in Latin that verifies that you walk it. And it's all in Latin, including me. So Curtis became Conrad. So I'm Conrad Watson. Most my Latin friends.
It was Melissa with an M.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the history, and then it's I think medieval times was very popular, had its ups and downs, but COVID hit it pretty hard, but I think it's coming back very, very strong.
A lot of the facilities, albergues and restaurants are a little more hit and miss.
Yeah. So again, we started to go out, bust over to Lourdes, we'll talk about that, and then really Camino de Santiago Frances, and then we did, I'll show you that, we went to Finisterre, which means end of the earth, which was believed in pagan times to be the end of the earth, because the earth was believed to be flat. And it was believed to be the farthest western point of Europe. And we took that back out there too, and what we bust out that. So here we are in Bilbao, followed the COVID protocol for the first few days. And then after a while, I don't know if Greg really agreed to this, but after a while we go, okay, we're eating together, we're sitting around together. Why are we wearing masks on buses? Because it's just us on the bus. So we started kind of shedding, but after a while we figured, okay, we're kind of safe here. We're all going to get it, or we're all going to be safe. And we were all safe, which was good. We actually came in, we actually spent about another week in Madrid before the group got there. The group actually was met by Bishop Kim at the IA, and she did a blessing and sent rosary beads and all that really nice. Little prayer book and the message she put on to do that. Our first stop was Lourdes, which I knew nothing about. It's a really Catholic town, I want to say. And Bernadette Subros, this is only back, she was about 12 years old, and she had 14 visitations or affirmations with what she called the lady, which people around her believed that was the Virgin Mary. It was in 1858, so not that long. And I'll show you pictures of the grotto that she would have these visions. And the thing that really sold people that she was telling the truth is she wasn't very bright, she was very, very poor, and she would have words that, religious words that she wouldn't know. How did you figure that out? And I actually got so interested, I read the Song of Bernadette on a copy in 1941, and it's it really gave a lot of history as best they could about. I think they made it into a movie as well, but I read the book more about how the church denied her this. She'd have to go to the bishop and he would scream and yell at her, and go to the police and they'd yell and scream. But she had such a following that ultimately, and evidence of miracles from it would be like a spring that she had. And people come, I'll show you pictures, they come, I guess continually, march in several times a day in wheelchairs, hoping to be cured. And there's some evidence that some people have gotten out of wheelchairs and cured. They had fountains of the water, they actually spigots, we got it. We sampled it, I don't know. A lot of people, to me, it was just amazing to see the following of faith. This was just typical of, in the morning, in the evening, a parade of people coming in, and we have church service there, and then we go to picture the grotto cave, and you see the wall here. One thing she was instructed by the lady of the Virgin Mary was to build a church on top of this. And so they, I guess they got built on. She wasn't sainted, she wasn't Took that long for, I guess, the church to put all the foods they have to do. But it's a pretty interesting place now. And this is reading one the grotto, and then over to the right, it actually has thickets of beauty. Kind of interesting. Again, I was inspired enough to read a book about it. Just,
Did you pay to go in there?
no. So the other things we did there, we did the air stations of the cross, 14 station, and we were 14. And we did that as a group. It's kind of an interesting movie. And then we were allowed, it was interesting, I'll show you, some parishes, the priests would not allow us to come in. We had a woman priest, we were not Catholic. Other places, and in this Basilica of St. Bernadette, we were allowed to go in the chapel, so that's what's happening. Holy Communion. And there we went to St. Jean Pierre de Port, and that was the beginning of the front of the Camino de Frances, about 50 miles from the north. And just really pretty town. This was part of the path that you go to the hotel on the right, very better picture. Kind of places we stayed. We had Aunt Greg has been there many times, and he also uses Baby Fisher. She's a Brit that has lived in Spain for 20-something years and does tourism. And so she was with us the whole time. Give us daily sheets of where to go. She would arrange for all the hotels. She would arrange for our lunch. Really nice arrangement. So when you get there, you gotta sign up to get your credential, which is your little marriage badge. This reminds me of one of the marriage badge. But you get these stamps by going to bars and restaurants and even the renting to get stamps or churches or hotels. And this is what they use as evidence to say you have walked the required amount of distance. That you actually, you have to get 2 stamps a day, to get your compass stuff. So part of the deal. But you go there and then you hear this about the guy who goes, the stamps he goes, ready, he goes, Camino, good Camino. And you hear that 1,000 times as people pass each other. It's Camino, kind of like wow. You also have to pick out a scallop shell. And the significance of the scallop shell in Camino is you think about the boots, we should call them boots, the scallop shell, they all lead to one spot, Santiago. So these are the different symbols of the different routes that you go on. Pretty long. And it was kind of weird there because if you go on Cherry Creek Trail or the High Line, you see people, you pass people, nobody's ever crosses you because everybody's walking over there. For the most part. If you see somebody walking the wrong way, tell them they're wrong.
There are some people that walk to Santiago and they're all overachievers.
Yes, so that, in the old days, I guess they had to do that. So anyway, it goes on your pack, and that's how you can tell it's somebody's cool. So this is the head of the trail. This is like the first day we're going to really walk. Up until now, we've been tourists. We've been billboards. We've had the parade meals. We've been sightseeing, buying souvenirs. Now we're going to get serious and start walking. So this was the night before we headed out. This is called the Napoleon Trail. And this is the path over the pass of the Pyrenees that Napoleon took in 1803 to take it over Spain. And so the first day was the hardest at 16 miles, and it's 11 miles uphill, 5 miles down. 4,000 feet vertical. You started at 500 feet, but you go to 4,500. And so, I don't know, they played it up, and I think she made it too big a deal on her value. To where these were 5 out of 13 says, okay, I'll walk the whole thing. And then you guys, some of you guys took a bus and then it's like halfway. And so I said, okay, if we're going to go walk this, we're going to start early. So I said, we're leaving at 5:30. What was cool is this is a so it's about 6:30 in the morning. Starting getting late. Going across, starting to get towns and stuff. on the way. And it's actually, at this point, it's a road, but it's, I mean, single lane road, you have to go grass, massive cars. And then, this is a typical albergue or auberge in French, hostel in English. And this is where a lot of the pilgrims, lighting kids, and older people too, lighting kids, they'll stay in these bunkhouses for a few hours. It's also, they had cafes here, so you can get coffee. And there are no public restrooms, but if you buy a coffee, you can use the restroom. So that's how, or here, whatever you want. So about after 9 miles, we rode in. By now, this the teams, they caught up with us, and they were going up the path. So it becomes, you know, something we'll typically see in Colorado.
That was fake.
No, it wasn't paid. And from this point on, about 5 miles, there's, in fact, one of the guys was late, you know, worried about him, because you get this, up at this point, there's really no, you know, nobody, other than other pilgrims, nobody out there. Typical symbol of that you're on the trail, and the arrow means the way, and a lot of times you can see that spray painted on the sides of buildings. And they also said, I didn't see it, sometimes if the guy has a bar down the street or restaurant, he might make his own spray paint that I'm working. Supposed to be careful of that. This is over, now we're coming downhill over the 5 and period.
Is it cold up there?
You know, we were lucky. It just got into spring. So you know, short some days, long paper.
It was really windy.
Windy,
On the
yeah.
path.
Yeah, our hats were strapped down, you can see there. Or else we would lose it. And then after, you know, 16 miles, we get to also Dallas State. So we're in Spain now. First stop on the Camino. History here, Charlemagne, you know, ruled Europe and promoted Christianity in the 800s. He fought the Basques and fought the Moors in 778 in a battle here. He lost, but he took the Basque off. So this was our first day, and the building on the left was like an old monastery. So we really stayed in the places. They were not, they're very simple. We always have one bath, and very simple rooms, very historic rooms. And then the church there straight ahead conducts the evening mass every night. Pilgrims. It's kind of the official start. You're in Spain. And it was interesting here. They invited everyone. The only church we saw where that was optional. But you know, I guess the priest kind of owned their own show. And then here we are in the morning, get ready. This is 790 going by road kilometers, which comes out to a little over 500. I think this picture was in Colorado Episcopalian. And then we have Pamplona. We were bused there. Some statue of running the bulls. We had ate at the Cafe Luna, which was a favorite spot of ours, hidden in the bar in the back of the statue. And he wrote his first novel, The Sun Also Rises in 1996. And then from there we left. You see Pamplona in the background, and the first kind of place to attraction, place to go, place of inspiration was called Alto de Rome, which is Hill of Forgiveness. We really didn't do anything ritualistic there, but you walk straight up through it's like little, you walk through little medieval towns.
Farms.
Yeah, farms on the way up. And this, they have these kind of iron cutouts of medieval pilgrims. It's also a bunch of wood points. We went up there, and that was kind of our conclusion. Then we were getting thirsty, so we had to go to the why? Well, this building, we had to check it out. And they actually, this is a winery there, they bottle here, but on the side of it, they offer, I think, about 100 liters a day. You're not supposed to take too much, but that was for the bus trip,
Yeah, it's a big deal for all of them.
Yeah.
They say there's no Camino without.
Red line. Might not the best there, but and this was off on the side. This is Santa Camino de Santiago. So this was Gregorian monks chanting vespers, and they come from their quarters down the hall chanting, and then they do their service, and then they go back and you hear them, 15 minutes, day long. It's not thing we did. I just picked out a calendar. This is Castro Harris, Spain. At the top of the hill, you see us. We didn't climb up to that. We had enough walking that day. We stayed on the trail. But it's a castle from the 9th century, and then the town was, 13th or 14th century. And you see the poppies. They're co-mingled with it was probably barley or wine or small grain. I told them I can get some Roundup out here and use some GMO. Obviously, we can fix this. They use other poppies. It's beautiful, but it's it does probably take away from the harvest. The guy pulled her out the grain from that, but still be it. The Casper House, this is an example of it's again Greg there, and then UC who also works in the diocese. I think he works with the minorities and he's Hispanic. He's a really cool guy. He's born in Mexico, Mexico. Came to the U.S. was a Catholic priest for 20 years. Fell in love with a woman, and the Catholic Church says, not only will we excommunicate you, you'll never even be married again if you marry her. So he says, okay, I'll become Episcopal priest. I think he splits his time with the Lutheran Church.
Yeah, he's paid by Lutherans and Episcopalians.
Yeah, one guy. And then Maggie and some other different yeah, some other RT there. So, and one thing I might mention here, we walk, we don't walk together, which I was afraid of this. Oh my God, we're gonna sit here and wait for everybody and somebody to go to the bathroom, 13 people. But you start off usually we have breakfast together, and you get the unless there was a bus waiting for us, you could come in anytime you want. Always making them for dinner. You start watching early afternoon. And even Melissa and I, we split up and walked on the pace. We used our phones because we could locate each other. I know she was about half a mile ahead of me or behind me. But we would seem to kind of show up at different times, say at once, because it took maybe 30 minutes to get something done. And then we kind of sit together and we just wander off on the pace. That really made it nice. It was a little skeptical. I've done a lot of trips on my own, but I didn't know how this was going to work out. I think 13 was, I think he wanted 25 or so. And it does affect the price for you, because you got to pay for, we got a full-time guy and buses and things like that. But I really like the fact that it was a smaller group. An example of this is the Catholic Harris. This is the Santa Maria de Manzano, which is a church Our Lady in Apple, I guess. 14th century church. You go inside, again, it's 1300s. And this is like not a big attraction. This is like they just keep. After a while, you just can't go to the church. You say, I got to get home. And then the Camino is used for all kinds of purposes, including herding sheep. And you see the sheepdog in front. This guy was just we had to get in front of the sheep. That's where we're going to be announcing. So we got that busy there. This is a cathedral in Lyon. Interesting to me with you can see the books. There you go. But you see the Moorish look, the original church, and then later on this 16th, 17th century and so that's a cathedral. But around there, Lyon is really the town, and here's where this is a statue. You see these pictures, and you see all kinds of paintings and stuff of Santiago St. James. And I guess during trying to push the wars out, 800 to 1100, good Muslims had come over, try to from Morocco. And they kind of took over Spain. And you see throughout Spain this influence of architecture. But so this is around maybe 800 or 900. The Spanish adopted St. James as the patron saint to get rid of the war. So here you've got an apostle riding a horse stomping when you see the heads of Muslims. Okay, again, this wasn't biblical. This was how the people in Spain utilized him for inspiration and guidance.
They claim he appeared. In
Yeah.
those battles.
A lot of that. Yeah. Do you believe it or not? I don't know, but it's just cool that for that many years people accepted that. And this was, I think, the ministry I didn't put out a note. This was where it's called a cruise, the fair, Iron Cross. And a pile there are stones that people left. You leave a stone in remembrance of somebody in thankfulness for somebody. Just, I mean, hundreds of years of a pile of stones. So I had, you're supposed to bring a stone from home. So this was back when I was really in shape. August 2011, I climbed Mount Elbert. I took my stone off, so I bought that stone. We put big nature work in my mom on it, and her mom, and left there. And that's we also left the stone at Brad because you had passed away. Just, scenery on the way, beautiful places. And then we got to, I say off the railroad.
Oh, yeah.
We got a TH for the sea, but anyway. And this is the oldest church associated with Camino. It dates back to the 9th century. Beautiful place. And it was interesting here, it's inside of it, very simple. There's a guy walking around, a guy in the center there. I thought he was a sexton because he was kind of cleaning up stuff. Turns out he's a priest.
You do that.
And
You cleaned up stuff.
he took
That's
pictures
some job.
of all the other priests, including that's kind of cool. And then we stayed there, and this is a font, 9th century font. And then the part of the trip we were going to do was bring up and do our baptismal house. But we found out that Vicky here, although she's very active in her church and was always going to church, she says, I've never been baptized. So we said, okay, you're going to get baptized. And you can explain the Shaw.
Oh, the Manteca, the race in America. There's another woman. It's here, but anyhow, Breckenridge, who went to Lourdes with her mom when she was a child, and her mother bought her this mantilla. And she brought her along on this trip, thinking, I'll find someone to give it to, pass it on to somebody. Little did you know, it would be one of our group. She was thinking it'd be somebody, but once we found out we were doing this baptism, she knew.
And they used the water in the flower cake, so special baptismal water. Just some of the characters, this is more typical of what you see. Hippies, people find themselves. This guy had 2 dogs. One he had to keep holding on to, the other was really trained. And then again, most of the where you walk in the right of ways, either through farms or in the middle of farms or against farms, and a lot of animals. Farms are more like probably we had 100 years ago. They have mechanization, but they're not huge. They're not the mega farms you're going to see here, like in Colorado or Nebraska. This is called Oreo, spelled like Oreo, and this is typical throughout Spain. These are probably hundreds of years old, but they were built very ornamental, but they also serve the function of storing your grain, storing your crop, so the animals can't get into it. And they're kind of slatted so they breathe. Little towns walking through, you see the milepost there. And they usually have how many kilometers of Santiago, so they kind of get a little excited when you get to 100 or 90. Talking about the beaten path, 1,000 years does some damage to the path. And so this is, I would say, about 3 feet. The path is lower than the surroundings. And you had some really more prolific pictures of that. It would be amazing. And then the walls that they're proud of, telling me, well, we honor that, don't go to the farms, don't go to the bushes and feed and that kind of stuff. On all that. This is our first day coming into the quarter Marion on the Camino River, and the town's up the hill. So after you walked, this was like this is only like a 16 mile We had an 18-mile. So after you walk back, you walk across this bridge, you always stops. It's torturous. And then from there, you walk our hotels on the other side of town, it's all uphill buildings. Typical of a stop cafe, most of the time we're outside. You can see used hiking poles all the time, the rubber tips, which is really, Greg was good about that. Give rubber tips a little way here, click, all day long. And the rubber tips on the poles, but it really helped us for stability. Nobody got hurt on the strip. I think that was the first he said. And everybody got along. It was just really, nobody got irritated or anything. It was really cool. One of the churches is a 13th century church in the Brea.
Is it still there?
No?
Picture looks like snow.
Oh, that's the stone. Yeah. No, we had 2 or 3 days of rain, but never too much. And then this is in the lady out of the food. So this is a pole. This is octopus, and they serve it with boiled with butter. It was really good. And you get that, and we get glacier soup, which is a cabbage soup. It's it was great. It was pouring outside. It was the first time. Let's have lunch. Let's have lunch. And then no. The calamari, maybe like the lobster firm. So this is actually the last night before we got to Santiago. This is a typical, small hotel we stayed at. And then one of the things we did communally is we had dinner. Before we did it, we used to have questions. We get together, always go get a drink at the bar first, and then it was interesting times. It was sometimes I thought they got a little too touchy-feely for me, or they asked questions that but you didn't have to answer because they had all passed. The other thing they did that I guess was to get it going. I used a technique to learn in school, but it was instead of the priest calling on you or the speaker calling you out, they would have a chip with he could decide who he wanted to speak next. And then they did the same with grace. And I'm okay with that, so I got asked to be at grace. And then I think it was this night. I've been down to Jamaica where they call me like that. And it's like sort of all back so you don't get hurt. And so it was interesting because it just hit me out of it. It was my turn to pick someone. And I could hear people who call me. This isn't the right attitude. I said, I'm not going to pick anybody because somebody has to win. And then Mike said something. I thought that was, I don't know.
Yeah, it was his issue.
It was my issue.
Yeah.
You don't want me calling you.
No, that's true.
So we walked the last day. This was outside Santiago. It was big picture taking, kind of getting into getting into town there. And then we did the last 3 miles we walked together. That was so we all got to the square at once. That was intentional. And then we actually walked in silence, which
That's when we run to the top.
yeah. And this is the cathedral. Let's call it. And I had a hard time because I always thought of Basilica like I've been to like St. Paul's Basilica in Rome. It's because he's buried there. And I always thought you had to be buried there to be a Basilica, but I guess you don't because St. Bernadette's is not buried in the Basilica. There are wars. St. James is buried here, but they call it a cathedral. So I don't know, but it's a cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. Originally, again, a church was there recognized in 829. It burnt down, the Muslims burnt down, they claim. And this cathedral was started in 1075 and sort of finished in 1211 and then expanded in the 16th and 18th centuries. And I can't tell you exactly what was expanded. But this is the whole group got there together in the square. And then we all put our feet around the shelves outside. Just some of them, everybody has different feelings when they get there. captured a couple of pictures of people, most, a lot of young people. And a lot of older, all ages.
The children? Not too many.
No, they were mostly guys at college, this is.
Saw a lot of high school groups for day trips coming along.
Yeah.
They have the short shorts, phones, but they got like 50 on the line. Like no one's got it. It's all over the house.
Yeah. That's when you stop to watch.
Yeah.
But this is inside the cathedral. And this, more neighbors tonight. See, yeah, this thing in the front here is called a Manta Funeria. And it's a big incense. I mean, a big incense mark. And the chain goes up, I don't know, 100 feet at least. And we were hoping, we went to a couple of services there, hoping that they would swing it. And they say originally it was to defumigate all the pilgrims if I had a bath for 2 days. And then we learned later, we probably should have taken up a collection, but for about $400, the priest will operate it. But they want a donation unless it's a special day.
If you get the movie The Way, you'll see them swinging it in the movie and how many people it takes to get it going and keep it going. It's pretty.
Yes, it's a series of like pulleys. And I have all kinds of detailed pictures of mechanisms. Again, we'll be intrigued by how it works. Okay, and then underneath that altar is the remains of St. James. It's kind of neat. We're early people, so we were there at 6:30 when we woke up. And I got to go down in the tomb and just be along with St. James.
Did you talk to them?
Is that?
Did you talk to St. James?
Yeah. No. Okay, I'll put my slides here. This is the Episcopal Church of Spain. And I know Ken very strongly did a lot of working relating to get to know them better. It's called St. Susan's rather. And these are churches, this is like an extra church. It's owned by the state. They have the same issue we have here, old Catholic churches where they're not being used in the city. This is shared with the Ukrainian Orthodox and the Russian Orthodox. That must be interesting when you get there. And the Church of Spain. And this was Mother Anna. We had there with her. She certainly talked. She was actually walking the Camino, and then I guess got a job offer. Or like, she stayed here, so she's there. They're trying to raise, I think, $3 million to have their own Church of Spain in Santiago to serve other people who would be invited otherwise. The lesbian women, priests, that kind of thing. What was kind of interesting was the whole time she's doing this, this one was impressive because the whole time it was Ascension Day. There's a carnival outside. And there's carnival music. And I mean, she had to scream. No, they don't have it working in there. They don't have audio visual. So she was just screaming the whole service and never lost it. You know, I would have just quit because it was so loud in there because this carnival was going on. And then we did, I mentioned once we got to Santiago, we went out by bus, another 50 miles or so, all the way to Finisterre. But on the way we stopped at the ocean and did a whole meeting at the beach. And then this is the last milestone at Finisterre. And this was a restaurant at believed to be the ends of the earth. And then we all had a little salute to the completion of the Camino. And then again, got our Compostelas. The guy on the left on the age group, Mike was 80, he admitted that. And he would was really good at it. He wasn't always up for 16 miles, but then Debbie would drop him off halfway, so it always finished with us. A couple other people did that some days later than walk. Anyway, it was accommodating everybody and a good trip. And again, I felt like I witnessed half the timeline of Christianity by walking. Questions or comments? Yeah, I had a picture of my blisters. I decided not to show that. We were really good at that, and that's where the preparation is important. And I never got that blisters, but I got them those. And so you do some old skin and you do Fred Legal. But they were manageable. I mean, it never, I saw one group could hardly even stand up, and she kept, it wasn't an actor. And our whole group, I think, other than maybe,
No, Mike had, young Mike had.
Yeah.
Phenomenal guy.
Yeah.
Because he brought brand new shoes and him.
that,
It's hiking.
trail runners, some, yeah. And, still down there. They did 140 miles, didn't do that much damage.
Oh, yeah. You should write it, they will.
Yeah.
Nope. You can see my screensaver.
The Episcopal Diocese. Yeah, so, in fact, there's, and I guess this is the purpose, maybe somebody will get inspired, but I think in October of next year, they're gonna do the Portugal Camino, which will probably be a little shorter. And Ken and Greg and Debbie will probably be the, ones working on it. But it was really, they made it, with their knowledge, they would give you a sheet, go, you might not want to try that restaurant out. She knew, she had walked, I think, 7,000 kilometers in 4 years. So we were cracking the world.
I think it was a good way for never having gone and being afraid about it and unknown. It was a good way to do it because you always had someone to support you, back you up. But I think if I went back, I would rather not be in a big group like that. But it would be nice to have the support of someone taking luggage from place to place. And there are organizations that do that. But now, it's like, oh, it's nothing to be worried about. Once you've seen it and done it.
I do want to go
There's
back.
such a network there of supporting people, and even fellow pilgrims. You just help each other. If you need something. Someone's always there. There's an expression they'll say, the Camino gives you what you need. It's not maybe what you want or think you need, but it gives you what you need. It could be just a kind word, like you're having a bad day. Someone comes along, says something that comes you up, or just, you need something for your blisters or whatever it is. Just the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the community. I think.
Yeah, we walk with others, because you find the pace. I remember one time I had a German guy, young guy, and we walked together for a while. I mean, 5 miles or 10 miles. You just run across people, and then you run across the same group. It was a Canadian priest, and there was a couple girls from Florida. They were nuts because they were those hobbling. Their shoes were,
And that's the nice thing about doing it contiguously, or instead of jumping from section to section, we meet people then we've never seen again, but doing day to day, back to back, you run into them, so you get this. Oh, how are you? How much pleasure can you know? A lot of times, people will say, "What brings you on?" And you get into these discussions with strangers that you might not share things with us in this room that you could easily talk to a stranger about. So it's just, I don't know what brought you here, what was your intention? So what was yours? I guess there's 2 parts of it. One's the spiritual part, one's the physical adventure. So you have to train for the adventure part. But the spiritual part, I think for me, it was more, well, the theme for the group they set for us was healing. And, I mean, not fit for everybody, but a lot of people go for healing or peace, or maybe had a bad diagnosis or lost loved ones, or just thankfulness.
That's more gratitude.
Or peace, yeah. And I think of that, and for me, it was just looking for, after being COVID bound, homebound for so long, just getting out and just appreciate the world and finding like the sacred and, beautiful scenery or, people, whatever it was, just reconnecting.
You say you want to do it again, would you do the Portugal one?
I'd like to do the northern.
Yeah.
Just above, a little bit, a little further north.
Yeah.
Along the ocean.
I think we go by ourselves, but we do
I'm not
support.
gonna do that. Honestly, that's not a bad thing, but I think you have to walk from the window.
Yeah.
And not, or split up during the
Yeah.
day like we did, and then you have it. Because otherwise it shakes.
But it wasn't, it turned out it wasn't really scary or concerning that I would want. And it was always about, and then Greg would talk about, yeah, you got bad knees or whatever. He says you got to keep your feet, not have blisters. That'll take you down. But you can just walk your own pace with our breaks. Not happening. And we had, like I said, we had people up at 80, and we were probably 100 less than the median of the age group. They were, people well in their 70s. But I'll tell you, they were prepared. One of the days they were passing me.
You have good days in that.
Yeah.
Do the various communities have the same sort of organized spots, so the restaurants or places to stay, do they all have that?
I think in Spain they do. I'm not sure about France. I mean, a lot of people start in England. I'm not sure until you get to Spain.
This John Brierly, if you're interested, this book, and it's only like, it's like 30 bucks. This was Latin, and it has, that's how I know it's the 13th century church and all that in history. But it also has places, and it's laid out almost like a 20-mile, like a town here and a town 20 miles apart. So you could, or 15 or 10, so you can kind of figure, we'll start with this town and at the top of the page by evening. That was very, very helpful. If you're interested, I recommend you this book. It's something that kind of gives you a flavor of what's there. A lot of people just, they give you, when you start out, they give you a list of all of the Albertans there. You can call them up and get a reservation. A lot of people, that's all they stay, especially the kids, because it's probably 10 months a night or something. I think if I went, we could stay there, but I learned that they do have like rooms there too, for a few more dollars. Very simple rooms that you can get. I think that's what I want.
Yeah.
It was good. But not nearly as scary as you think, hard as you think, and then Melissa was wondering whether she was really up for it, and I talked to Greg and said, look, I assume they got it. You talk about, we got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, but I assume, there's lift out there and stuff like that. And he says, oh yeah, and in fact, that's where dedicated she would, she would pick something here.
I had a bad knee. I wasn't sure I could go, but I didn't want to cancel, so that's why I was like, well, if I go, I can't walk. But interesting enough, I had a torn meniscus, a huge cyst on my knee, and I didn't have time to do surgery. About 2 weeks before I went.
Miracle.
I don't know. Did that happen to me? Not before we left on the trip, and then I started training. But it was like all of a sudden, the system's gone, the pain's gone, and the house is back. So that's like my little Camino miracle. I don't know.
Oh, God, willing, as well.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I would say, you can just go on the diocese website and has information on that. And then, I know when I got interested in it in 19, I called Ken Greg up, and he was really helpful about, because he was looking for, more of the area, they have a certain limit, they try to get a certain size of food. And I think they got onto the Holy Lands in the spring. But I knew talking to QC, that was going to be like 80 people, so I'm not sure that's for me. But he said, we're going to break up in groups, because we really, our 13 that was a great size. Everybody got along, we were like a team. And we look forward to seeing everybody that evening, and we always had a community there, something too much for our otherwise. You guys look forward to it, and some of the ones who are struggling, making sure they're doing okay. And
There's a trip listed on the diocese website that's ecumenical and cross-cultural. So it looks like, and it's in October of 23, and it looked from the advertisement that it's the Episcopal Bishop, the Methodist Bishop, and the Lutheran Bishop, and QC are leading a trip to the Holy Land in October of 23. So it's different kind of the priests.
Catholic priest that became.
but he works for the diocese.
Oh, okay, that's his name.
Yeah, Corino or something like that. So
This comes right out the top.
it's for us.
Well, thank you.
That was fun. Very well.
Oh, the history lesson.
Yeah.
The history lesson.
I use my, I'm the guys that see, my back's.